let's get into our first topic. We are talking about what John Lynch, the 49ers GM, had to say at the owners' meeting. He was asked, what is the quarterback situation moving forward? And he basically talked about how Brock Purdy is the leader in the clubhouse to be considered for the QB1 position over Trey Lance and obviously over Sam Darnold. And that got me thinking, what exactly is going to happen with Trey Lance now? Because Brock Purdy, while yes, Brock Purdy played phenomenally, I think we could all talk about this. What is exactly going to happen with Trey Lance? First of all, let's talk about why the 49ers even decided to draft Trey Lance. Coming out of the 2020 season, they just came off of a Super Bowl run the year prior, and then the following year, they were dealing with Jimmy G's injuries again. Jimmy G could never stay healthy. I think that was the first reason why the 49ers even decided to go and draft Trey Lance. Now, they had some thinking to do because they moved heaven and earth to get to that number 3 spot. The number 1 pick to the Jaguars was always going to be Trevor Lawrence. I think that was set in stone from the very beginning. I don't think Trey Lance was ever really considered. I don't think Zach Wilson, for whatever reason, was considered except for the New York Jets. I think that makes a lot of sense. Mac Jones was an option that the 49ers were reportedly essentially going to be pushing for, but then it turned out that they're going to draft Trey Lance. I never heard Justin Fields to the San Francisco 49ers. I never heard that. So we were down to really, it was Trey Lance or it was Mac Jones. One of those two quarterbacks. And they decided to draft Trey Lance because I guess if you look at it, Mac Jones is very similar to Jimmy G, and they wanted to move in a different direction, a more mobile direction, and they were taking a chance on a guy who potentially had the biggest upside, but had the lowest floor because he was the rawest quarterback in the draft. I believe he only played, 6 college games? Maybe even less, maybe a tiny bit more. I'm not too sure of the number, but it was an incredibly low number of college football games. He comes in as the rawest quarterback, and they wanted to see how he works. He was in there for 2 games, 57% completion percentage, 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks. With a team, everyone complains. I've talked about this before, and I've gotten backlash for this. Without CMC. Well, what about Jimmy G's success without CMC? He made it to a Super Bowl, made it to an NFC title game without CMC. You still had George Kittle, still had Deebo Samuel. What about Brock Purdy? They draft Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, and it was supposed to be Trey Lance's team. That's what Kyle Shanahan said the previous season. So we're talking about the 2021 offseason going into 2022. He said that Jimmy G was basically done, and Jimmy G did his goodbyes, and he was essentially going to be out from the organization. And then, when it came out that they needed a quarterback, they brought back Jimmy G in because they did not trust Trey Lance to take over the job, plus injuries. So what did they do? Trey Lance had an injury out of the second game. He lost against the Bears, which is, it's great. They drafted Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. So it was Jimmy G and Brock Purdy remaining after Trey Lance got his injury. And Jimmy G played very well. I don't care what people say. They only have that 10-game, 11-game winning streak, whatever they were on. Guess who started that winning streak? It was Jimmy G playing, as Jimmy G normally does in the regular season, pretty good. I know people don't like how he's not flashy or not mobile. He's a guy that wins a bunch of games. Winning matters in the league. Kyle Shanahan has a significantly better record with Jimmy G than without. So it's not exactly a pick-and-play offense because Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard, even I believe Hoyer was on the team, they aren't really starters in the league. So you can't throw in a random guy and have them operate the offense. But Brock Purdy has played a lot of college games. He's got that, adequate starter ability. So he was going to be able to come in and be successful, especially with the addition of CMC. I believe it was like a couple days before the Chiefs game where they got blown out by the Chiefs because Jimmy G can't really go up against Mahomes and beat him. Yeah, I believe he's lost to him twice, maybe more, in the Super Bowl and in the game this past season. So now the GM is saying that they want to go with they don't want to go with Trey Lance. They want to go to Brock Purdy as the leader of the organization moving forward. So what do you do with Trey Lance? You sign Sam Darnold to a contract I guess that's because you want a comparable QB3 in case you end up with the same situation you were in the NFC title game this past season, where you need to put back out Brock Purdy with a UCL injury. He couldn't throw more than a yard. What I would do if I'm the 49ers, let's say Lamar does get traded, or he signs an offer sheet with another team and the Ravens don't match it. I think they should be very intrigued, the Ravens should be, in acquiring Trey Lance. Because it'll fit somewhat of the same offense they've been running. Trey Lance is a 6'4", 220-pound quarterback who's incredibly mobile. Now you add Todd Mankin, I believe his name is, the Georgia coach. I believe he's your OC. You put Trey Lance in that offense, I think Trey Lance could do okay. But Trey Lance so far with the 49ers has not been great. And you say, oh, sample size. He had a very, very small sample size, only started 4 games. What did people say the first game that Brock Purdy played in? The first game. Who the hell is this guy? Jimmy G went down and we felt all hope was lost. He comes in, throws a couple touchdown passes and looks really good. That was after one game. After another game, this guy can play. He outplayed Tom Brady. Tom Brady we're talking about, the greatest quarterback of all time. Oh, but he had CMC, and he had George Kittle, and he had Deebo Samuel. CMC was there. Deebo Samuel he didn't have for most of the time. George Kittle, in honestly most games, was a no factor. 2 catches for 30 yards. Not really a major factor. So, good for Brock Purdy. I think he deserves the starting job. The only problem is you spent so much to get Trey Lance. I would really consider either moving off of Trey Lance when he still has a glimmer of value, even though teams don't exactly know what they're getting based on 4 games, even though I think it's pretty damn clear. Trey Lance ain't a great quarterback, and he needs serious refinement to be good. So what team will that be? I don't think it's the 49ers. The 49ers seemingly have given up on him. I would seriously try to get some trade value for it. I believe Pro Football Focus actually created a mock where Lamar gets traded and Trey Lance goes to the Ravens for, I believe, 2 second-round picks. That's not a bad trade. That's not a bad trade. You go with the guy who's better, and Brock Purdy, who went from Mr. Irrelevant to Mr. Relevant, rightfully so. He won 5 straight games in the regular season. Then he won the 2 playoff games to get to the NFC title game, and I just feel like the Eagles still would have won that game regardless if it was quarterback. Put in Brock Purdy. He works for you. He's a little bit more mobile than Jimmy G. The arms, you could say, oh, he throws the ball deep. No, he doesn't. You can look at the stats. He doesn't throw more deep balls. They have comparable arms. Should Jimmy G have taken more deep shots? Probably. We've seen him do it. It's not like he can't do it. I think Brock Purdy fits in this organization really, really well. It's just a question of, can you keep that Cinderella run going? Now, if he keeps it going, it's not going to be a Cinderella story anymore because this is the quarterback that Brock Purdy is. So I would just take a look at the situation you have with Trey Lance. I don't think Trey Lance is all that. I've had people tell me, my friends, Trey Lance is going to be so good. Look at his athletic ability. Look at his upside. His upside only comes out if you have proper coaching. He's had the opportunity, I think, a couple times. He's gotten hurt. This was his year to really show that he's a quarterback in the NFL, and he got hurt. I don't think he ever plays another game with the 49ers unless if he stays, Brock Purdy gets hurt again. And that's the question of how healthy can Brock Purdy be after his elbow injury. I think we're going to be asking questions like that. I think 49ers are making a good move here. I think the next best move for the 49ers would be get off of Trey Lance because you spent so much on him, and the returns, you're not getting the returns I think you wanted from him. Go out, get some picks back because you got a phenomenal defense now. You signed Hargrave from the Eagles. Great pickup. Your offensive line is still amazing. You still have CMC. You still got Elijah Mitchell. You have a great team. Put the quarterback, who's the best quarterback on your team, in a position to win, and you've done that. But don't carry around excess baggage. Don't be like the Jets, where your quarterback is not really that good, and you're still saying you have faith in him. The fact that the Jets are still holding on to Zach Wilson and saying that he's going to be the future, or that they still have faith in him, It's the classic Jets. The 49ers should not do that. Some people probably even thought that they held on to Jimmy G for too long. Well, in that case, get off your worst quarterback, Trey Lance, and keep in your best one, Brock Purdy, and move forward. I don't think there's any reason to keep Trey Lance there unless you think he's your future. Then you would have made him QB1 because he's probably going to be back sooner than Brock Purdy. Because Brock Purdy, there's reports out that he may not even be ready for a training camp. So get Trey Lance the reps, I guess, and make him your QB1 if you think he's all that. If you really spent, I think it was 3 first-round picks to move up to that number 3 spot? Make him your QB1. I don't understand the purpose of keeping a guy who spent, heaven and earth to get, just to have him be behind Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the previous year's draft. I don't understand it. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.